All rise, please. This court's now in session. Please be seated.
Your Honor, we are here on docket 2359CR0153. It's the Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy.
Thank you very much. Could I have counsel for the Commonwealth or counsels identify themselves for the record?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Jennifer Sprague for the Commonwealth.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Amanda Fowler for the Commonwealth.
Could I have counsel for Ms. Clancy identify himself for the record?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Kevin Reddington. I represent Lindsay Clancy, who is appearing by Zoom, as I understand.
Okay, very good. I can see Ms. Clancy on the Zoom line. In this matter, this arraignment is being conducted at the assent of the parties, with Ms. Clancy participating from the hospital that she is in.
Lindsay, a 32-year-old mother to 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 7-month-old baby Carlin, now faces several charges including 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of strangulation. How did she find herself here? Well, let's dive in. Lindsay was a very loved person, and everyone who knew her described her as an amazing person and a very loving mom. She was a very respected labor and delivery nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital, who even shared videos for newborn mothers.
And I'm Lindsay Musgrove. I'm a new graduate nurse, so there are a lot of benefits for both mother and baby. For the mother, you can start forming a routine with your baby. You learn to sleep in chunks as your baby naps. You have less anxiety about your baby being out of your sight, so you actually are able to sleep better and deeper than when you send your baby to the nursery.
After graduating high school, she earned a biology degree in 2012 and also holds a bachelor's degree in nursing. She married the love of her life, Patrick Clancy, in 2006 and went on to have 3 children together. That's Cora, Dawson, and Carlin. They bought their home in 2008 in Duxbury, Massachusetts. The family had an amazing lifestyle, and the couple was said to be so perfect with 3 kids. I mean, they were happy. Patrick even said that they would say to each other, "I love you," a couple of times daily, and their love was love at first sight. But even with all this, Lindsay was said to be suffering from postpartum depression and even had moments of postpartum psychosis a few weeks after the birth of their 3rd child. She decided to leave her job, and at some point her husband also started to work from home to support her. She was on several prescriptions, including Prozac, and had admitted herself to the hospital the first week of the year because she also had suicidal ideations and thoughts of harming herself and her kids. In the weeks leading up to the murder of her 3 children, she told her husband that she heard voices and had had a moment of psychosis. Let's fast forward to Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. The day of the tragedy. Lindsay took her 5-year-old Cora to the pediatrician for an appointment. When she got back home, that's Lindsay, her daughter Cora, and 3-year-old Dawson went outside to play with the snow, and she even sent pictures of them building a snowman to her mom and husband. Later that evening, she called CVS, a store that sells medicine, and asked them if they had some medicine so she could get her daughter, and they said they didn't have that particular medicine but had other similar medications. She had had a long day and hadn't cooked anything, so she texted her husband Patrick, who was in his home office in the basement, and asked him if she could place an order for pickup at a restaurant they had been to before, and he said yes. She placed the order and asked her husband to do the medicine pickup as well. He left at around 5:15 p.m. to run the errands. At around 5:30 p.m., he called her from the medication aisle, but she didn't answer the phone. She called him back a minute later, and the call lasted 14 seconds. It was a normal call, although the husband mentioned it seemed as though she was in the middle of something. He then picked up the takeout and was out of there in a minute. Arriving home, he saw no one and no noise was coming from the house. He called her phone at 6:09 p.m., but she did not answer. He went to their bedroom, which was on the 2nd floor, but the door was locked. He, however, managed to open it, and the first thing he saw was blood on the floor and the window was open. So he ran downstairs into the backyard, where he saw Lindsay laying on the ground and had cuts on her wrist and neck, but the wounds had stopped bleeding. He then called 911 while asking her where the kids were. She told him they were in the basement. When EMS arrived, he asked them to stay with her so he could go find his kids. He called out for them while going in the basement, but there was no reply. Seconds later, he could be heard screaming in agony after finding them. Cora and Cullen were on the floor in the den area of the basement, while Dawson was on the floor in his father's home office. They had been strangled. Their faces were blue when authorities arrived and still had the exercise bands that were used to strangle them tied around their neck. He removed the bands and begged them to breathe while screaming, and then he yelled out, "She killed the kids." The cops said there were obvious signs of severe trauma. The kids were put in ambulances and rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately, Cora and Dawson were declared dead at the hospital. Medics flew Cullen to the Boston Children's Hospital, where he received treatment in life support but died days later at the hospital on January 27th. Lindsay was also rushed to a nearby hospital because she had sustained several broken bones in her back and rib cage. She is still at the hospital, paralyzed from the waist down. This tragedy left the whole community in shock, including the first responders who were seen shedding tears. Now we have the story, but what actually made her do what she did? Was it a tragedy or a planned murder? Let's hear from the prosecutor's point of view as well as her lawyer.
Commonwealth, I'll hear from you first.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth is requesting that the defendant be held without bail based on the facts of the case, the strength of the Commonwealth's case, and the potential penalty. On Friday, January 27, 2023, using an erasable whiteboard because she was still temporarily intubated, one of the first questions that Lindsay Clancy asked was, "Do I need an attorney?" She knew that she had murdered her children, and she had the clarity, focus, and mental acumen to focus on protecting her own rights and interests. She used Apple Maps on her phone to determine how long it would take someone to drive from her home in Duxbury to 3V Restaurant in Plymouth, so she would know how long someone would be gone if they ran that errand. The police were able to find several notebooks in the defendant's home pursuant to a search warrant, and also notes on her phone that were similar to journal entries. In the months, weeks, and days preceding January 24, 2023, the defendant meticulously detailed her daily activities, her children's lives, her mental state, and her medication use. Her writing was clear, precise, and articulate. She never indicated that she was hallucinating, delusional, or had disordered thoughts or speech. In all of her writing, she appears to know who she is, where she is, the date, and with whom she's interacted. She wrote a note on her phone the day before killing the children stating that she had, quote, "a touch of postpartum anxiety," end quote, around returning to work. She wrote that her psychiatrist had prescribed medication to help her. The defendant was initially diagnosed, according to her husband, with generalized anxiety disorder. She was then evaluated at the Women and Infant Center for Women's Behavioral Health in Providence, Rhode Island on December 20th, 2022. There, after an evaluation, she was told in the presence of her husband by psychiatrists that she did not have postpartum depression and that she had no symptoms of postpartum depression. She wrote in her journal that at times she had suicidal ideation in December of 2022, and she also told her husband that she had suicidal thoughts and on one occasion had thoughts of harming her children. But she did not write or voice those thoughts after a stay at McLean Hospital. When she had those thoughts, she consulted with a psychiatrist and with her husband, and then she committed herself to McLean Hospital on January 1st, 2023. She was discharged by the hospital on January 5th, 2023. And the hospital did not file any paperwork at that time attempting to have her committed as a danger to herself or others. She also kept meticulous and detailed daily medication logs in a diary that she wrote. She detailed that she had difficulties with each of the medications that were prescribed to her. And when she had issues with those medications, she detailed how her doctor had her stop that medication or wean off of it and then try something else. They were trying different medications to see what would work for her, what would benefit her. According to her husband, she was never on more than 4 to 5 medications at one time. And at the time of the murder, she was taking only 3 medications. And he said to the police that she always took the medications as prescribed. On the night of the killings, Patrick Clancy was interviewed by the police. He told the police that the defendant was having one of her best days. She was smiling and happy, and there was no indication that she was going to harm the kids. No one at all described her as acting like a zombie in the days leading up to the murder or on the day of the murders themselves. Yesterday, on February 6, 2023, at 10:09 a.m., she again used Dr. Zeisel's cell phone to call her husband. This time he answered, and during this call, the defendant stated that after he left the house that night, she killed the kids because she heard a voice and had, quote, a moment of psychosis, end quote. He asked her what voices she heard, and she said she heard a man's voice telling her to kill the kids and kill herself because it was her last chance. Patrick Clancy told the police the defendant had never heard voices before. He also told the police the defendant had never used the word psychosis to him before. The first time she used that word psychosis was when she was with the doctor hired by defense counsel and using his cell phone. The defendant actually wrote a note on her phone on October 25th, approximately 3 months before this happened, October 25th, 2022. She wrote, quote, "I think I sort of resent my other children because they prevent me from treating Cal like my first baby. And I know that's not fair to them, I know that. I was feeling so depressed last evening when Cora and Dawson came home from school. I know it runs off on them, so we had a pretty rough evening. I want to feel love and connection with all of my kids." She then wrote that she wants to have more kids eventually. The defendant did not take advantage of the situation when her husband left the home that night. She created the situation. And she used Apple Maps to make sure she would have enough time to strangle each child before her husband returned from where she had sent him. The defendant is a danger to herself and others. She planned these murders, gave herself the time and privacy needed to commit the murders, and then she strangled each child in the place where they should have felt the safest, at home with their mom. She did so with deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity and cruelty.
Your Honor, my request is that the court not enter what I would suggest is an inhumane order, ordering this woman to be incarcerated. We all know, as people that work in the system, that jails and prisons are woefully deficient in medical care of the most basic type. We all know that this is an individual, as Your Honor knows from reading Dr. Rakar's letter, who is in dire medical condition. We all know that this woman is, as counsel concedes apparently, a danger to herself. I question whether she would ever make it to a trial. She's suicidal. She's extremely emotional. However, she's unable, and has been unable, to express any happiness or sadness or cry. And in fact, sometime about a month or two ago, she made the comment, "I just wish that I could feel something." Now, our society fails miserably in treating women with postpartum depression or even postpartum psychosis. It's medicate, medicate, medicate. Throw the pills at you and then see how it works. If it doesn't work, increase the dose or decrease the dose. Then end up trying another combination of medications. We're talking a relatively short period of time from when that baby was born in October up until January, when this incident occurred, Your Honor, that she was on such significant dosage of medication. When Callan was born, she ended up becoming depressed, suffered from significant anxiety, as a result of which she consulted with a number of doctors. A number of doctors indicated that she would be able to sleep, she would be able to feel, she would be able to emote once these medications kicked in. And again, as I say, our medical in our society completely abandons women with this condition. It's easy to say, come on, you have a healthy baby. You have a wonderful husband. You're able to take care of your kids in your home. You're lucky. Take the pills, you'll be okay. Well, they put her on a number of medications. She still had the suicidal thoughts. As the government has indicated, she even told her husband that she had suicidal thoughts. You think this is something that she's planning to kill these 3 kids by going and getting a menu, going on to Google Maps or whatever it is, and finding out the distance? When she tells her husband she's having suicidal thoughts, probably a month prior, thoughts of hurting her children, they go to the doctor again, and she's on the medications, on and off, on and off. This is a significant issue between the postpartum depression as well as possibility of postpartum psychosis. This is not a situation, Your Honor, that was planned by any means. This is a situation that clearly was a product of mental illness.
Now let's break down these two big words, shall we? Postpartum depression is a serious mental illness and it affects one's behaviors and mental health. It causes depression, sadness, and a mother can feel unconnected to her babies as though she was not the baby's mother, and the feelings can be mild to severe. The symptoms might include insomnia, intense irritability, feelings of guilt, fatigue, loss of appetite, anxiety, difficulty bonding with the babies, and even suicidal thoughts if it gets intense. It requires immediate treatment, which include counseling and antidepressants. Postpartum psychosis is even worse. Though uncommon, it's the severest form of mental illness characterized by extreme confusion, loss of touch with reality, paranoia, delusions, and hallucinations. The most severe symptoms tend to last 2 to 12 weeks, and it takes 6 to 12 months or more to recover from the condition. Treatment include antipsychotics and mood stabilizers. Different women respond differently to different treatment, but if severe treatment is needed, then electroconvulsive shock therapy, ECT, is often very effective. This therapy involves delivering a controlled amount of electromagnetic stimulation to one's brain by creating a seizure-like activity in the brain that helps to reset imbalances that caused a psychotic episode. That is so damn serious. In her case, she was taking like 13 psychiatric drugs, and even though it said that she was just taking the prescribed amount, we can't be sure. Unless someone was actually monitoring her dosage, which I don't think was the case, then she might have maybe retaken some medicine or wasn't taking some as per the prescription, and that might have altered her judgment. Guys, just see this list. There is Ambien, Valium, Prozac, Ativan, Remeron, Zoloft, Atarax. Couldn't say some because I can't even pronounce them right. My bad. I researched on some because I had to stop. It was getting scary. And guys, it ain't looking good. I mean, she was really going through it. From taking some medications, getting off some, being prescribed some more. I mean, and no disrespect to anyone taking any amount of medicine, but I can't handle like 3 different medications at the same time, and I'm talking, paracetamols, aspirin. I personally prefer injection to medicine, but the point here is I just feel like this was too much in a span of like 3 months. To anyone who has gone through either of the two and found themselves in situations that ended tragically, I just hope that you're going through some kind of mental health program because it ain't easy. Lindsay, as I said, is currently at the hospital where she is undergoing extensive mental health care and is scheduled to appear in court on July 25th. I do wish her a quick recovery and hope that she'll get all the help she needs, but either way, she's like done for. She might be thrown in jail for murder or end up in a mental health facility or even decide to end it all because her lawyer said she's not mentally stable and might hurt herself. If she really recovers and realizes what she had done, I don't even want to imagine how that situation would look like or feel like. From being a mother of 3 kids that she loved so much to none, that is, I don't even have a word for it. Such an issue needs so much attention from the government, health practitioners. It needs a voice because this is a real issue. Her colleagues at the hospital, her friends, they all had positive comments about her, and they hoped that the 3 angels would not hold their mom responsible for their deaths because the person who, was not their mother because their mother would never hurt them. Her husband, Patrick Clancy, is also standing by her and has forgiven her for what she did to their 3 kids. Here's what he said. Thank you all for your love and support. The warmth I've received from the community is palpable, and your generosity gives me hope that I can focus on some sort of healing. I've seen all of your messages and contributions, including some from people I haven't seen in over a decade and many I've never met. I see and appreciate every one of you. A lot of people have said they can't imagine, and they're right. There's absolutely nothing that can prepare you. The shock and pain is excruciating and relentless. I'm constantly reminded of them, and with the little sleep I get, I dream about them on repeat. Any parent knows it's impossible to understand how much you will love your kids until you have them. The same goes for understanding the devastation of losing them. Cora, Dawson, and Carlin were the essence of my life, and I'm completely lost without them. My family was the best thing that ever happened to me. I took so much pride in being Lindsay's husband and a dad to Cora, Dawson, and Carlin. I always reminded myself that each day with them was a new gift. Colin usually woke up first and would rest his head on my shoulder for a few minutes as he adjusted to morning. Dawson typically sang or spoke his thoughts out loud for a while before we'd go get him. Cora was a big girl and would simply walk downstairs. I can still vividly picture her coming into the living room each morning with her hair in a mess, a smile on her face. We always started our days together, reading books, cuddling up on the couch, and playing with magnet tiles. I loved taking them places, whether it was scooting at Chandler Elementary, vacation, skiing, out on the boat, or to Duxbury Beach, one of our favorite places on earth. They gave me purpose, and I never took it for granted. There's now a massive void where that purpose once was. Cora had an infectious laugh and was stunningly beautiful. She was the cautious one, but it was really because she was so caring. She used to say she wanted to be a doctor and a mama when she grew up, and she would practice by giving Colin checkups. If she was leaving the house to go somewhere, she would pick someone to take care of Caroline and Charlotte, her baby dolls. She had all the dolls' accessories available, so her sitters were well equipped. Before she turned 2, she was already wrapping them in perfect swaddles. We would tell her she's such a good little mama. She loved all babies, both real and pretend. She loved sloths, unicorns, tea parties, going to lunch with Nana and Grandpa, and giving presents to people. She knew everything about princesses, her favorite being Sophia the First. She truly loved her brothers and us, and said it often in her sweet voice. We did a lot of father-daughter activities together, like skiing and visiting San Francisco, or just talking. I loved her, my firstborn, so much. Dawson had beautiful, bold, brown eyes that beamed with friendship. He was naturally humorous and generous beyond the norm of a typical toddler, always willing to share his toys with others. For all the love he received, he always gave back more. His best quality was his pure kindness. He loved trucks, tractors, dinosaurs, Paw Patrol, worker guys, and being outside. He was adventurous and mischievous and enjoyed causing trouble, which he typically found hilarious. He was also remarkably smart. We always said if we didn't save enough for retirement, it'll be okay. We'll just live in Dawson's guest house. He would hug me tighter than most adults, and every night he told me in consistent words at bedtime, without fail, "Good night, Dada, I love you so much." We had a special bond from day one. He was my buddy, my first boy, and truly a gift. Colin was our easygoing child. I always said it was because he was the third child. He had to adapt, and he easily did. He was born with hardly any fuss and was by far our best sleeper. He was just an incredibly happy and vibrant baby, constantly smiling. Our nickname for him was Happy Colin. He was sitting on his own, and you could tell he was enjoying his growing independence as he would grab any object within reach. Sometimes he joined my Microsoft calls in the background, playing in his jumpy. I would keep my camera on, too proud to leave it off. He started saying Dada whenever I walked in the room. The last moment we had together was our routine. I would come up from my office at the end of the day and swing him between my legs while he laughed and smiled. If I was ever having a bad day, Colin always knew how to heal me. Perhaps that's why he held on a little longer to spare me whatever pain he could. As excruciating as it was, I was fortunate and grateful to feel his warmth until his very last moment. Faith is my only hope of believing, he felt mine. Colin died with enormous courage, and despite being so little, maybe it was his way of demonstrating what I need to do to press forward. I'll always try to draw inspiration from him. He'll always be my little hero. I want to share some thoughts about LINDSAY. She's recently been portrayed largely by people who have never met her and never knew who the real LINDSAY was. Our marriage was wonderful and diametrically grew stronger as her condition rapidly worsened. I took as much pride in being her husband as I did in being a father, and felt persistently lucky to have her in my life. I still remember the very moment I first laid my eyes on her, and can recall how overcome I was with the kind of love at first sight you only see in movies. It really didn't take long before I was certain I wanted to marry her. We said I love you to each other multiple times daily, as if it were a reflex. We habitually started every morning with a passionate hug, yielding a sigh of relief like we had received the perfect medicine. If too much time passed without a hug, she would look at me and ask, "Did you forget?" She loved being a nurse, but nothing matched her intense love for our kids and dedication to being a mother. It was all she ever wanted. Her passion taught me how to be a better father. I want to ask all of you that you find it deep within yourselves to forgive Lindsay as I have. The real Lindsay was generously loving and caring towards everyone. Me, our kids, family, friends, and her patients. The very fibers of her soul are loving. All I wish for her now is that she can somehow find peace. I promise I'll put all my energy into healing and rediscovering my purpose. I owe that to all of you, Duxbury Fire and Police, our compassionate health workers, our local faith leaders, the Microsoft community, and especially Cora, Dawson, and Colin. I don't know how or when I'll be able to do it, but your love and generosity will help me get started. I know that love always wins. Cora, Dawson, and Colin, you gave me so much in your short time here. I don't know if the pain will ever go away, but I'll do my best to carry on in your honor. Dada loves you so much and will always remember you. With love and endless gratitude. That's so moving. Maybe some blame her for not having done enough, but I think I have to believe sincerely that she was a mom who wanted to get better for the sake of her children and did so much for that, but she was so overwhelmed. I can honestly see why people would judge her and condemn her, but it's probably because this is someone they don't know in person. If something like this happens to someone you're close with, and I'm hoping it won't, then maybe you'd be able to understand her and why her husband and her friends came to her defense. I haven't seen anyone go through this personally or heard that it happened to someone that I know, but in a way I kind of empathize with her. She might not even be fully aware of what she did. More awareness has to be spread with regards to these issues, that is postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. Now, this case has an apparent similarity to the case of Andrea Yates, a mom who drowned her 5 kids in a bathtub like 22 years ago due to some mental-related issues that include postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. Andrea's now ex-husband actually gave a comment on this case, and this is what he said.
What did you think, Rusty, when you heard about this case?
Yeah, it sounds similar. I mean, anytime I hear of a case like this, I get a little sad because, you know, I had hoped that, you know, we'd have less and less, but realistically, I mean, it's a sickness. People get sick. You know, it happens. It's sad. I think when someone acts so out of character like that, it's kind of a flag, you know, that there's something else going on. And, you know, as far as forgiveness goes, I think that's kind of the start. Like you said, if something's completely out of character, this can't be right. What else is there, you know? And then I realized, okay, you know, at the time I did not know that she'd been psychotic. I did not know what psychosis even was or what the symptoms were. And, you know, like in this case, you know, you can do all you can at home, but you really can't protect yourself from a psychotic person at home. I mean, they get up in the middle of the night and, you know, light the house on fire or poison everyone or who knows, you know. It's so, you know, as far as the next step of forgiveness, I'd say is understanding it's a sickness, you know, that but for, you know, that causation, right, but for her sickness, she would never, ever, ever, ever have harmed our children.
I will cover that story as well, so stick around. Thanks for watching. See you in my next one.